Welcome to OOTO TV, the out of the office investigation from the past into the future of health. This time we're discussing vitamin B9, folate. Now, I know what you might be thinking, another vitamin, but stick with me here, because this isn't just about eating your leafy greens. What if a single vitamin could be the key that unlocks major insights into our genes, our brain function, and even our immune system? I'm your host, Alex, and today we are embarking on a scientific investigation that could change the way you think about health. So let's just pause on that question for a second. We're going to be exploring this incredible and honestly pretty mind-blowing web that connects vitamin B9, or folate, to some really complex conditions. We're talking about a super common genetic quirk called an MTHFR mutation, the autoimmune disorder Hashimoto's, and even autism spectrum disorder. I know, it sounds like a huge leap to connect these three things, but the science is pointing to some really fascinating links. We're going to follow the evidence, just like detectives, and see exactly where this trail leads. All right, so here's our game plan for this investigation. First up, we're going to put together the pieces of the vitamin B9 puzzle itself. Then we'll get into decoding the MTHFR gene. This is a massive clue. After that, we'll look at two potential workarounds, something called folinic acid and its even more direct cousin, methylfolate. Of course, we have to critically look at the evidence for all of this, the good and the, well, not so conclusive. And we'll wrap it all up with a personal folate roadmap, giving you some real actionable takeaways. Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1, the vitamin B9 puzzle. Before we can connect the dots to anything else, we really need to get to know our star player here, folate. And as you're about to find out, it's not just one single thing. It's got a surprisingly complex story, and its role in our bodies is, to put it mildly, absolutely essential. This is where things get really fascinating. Folate isn't just for, general wellness. It is fundamental to our very biology. It is absolutely crucial for building and repairing our DNA, literally the blueprint inside every cell of your body. But maybe its most important job is powering a process called methylation. Now think of methylation as a symphony conductor for your genes, flicking millions of tiny on and off switches that tell your body what to do. This process is vital for building a healthy brain and for keeping our immune system in check. When methylation goes wrong, you can get the kind of immune system confusion we see in conditions like Hashimoto's. And if that wasn't enough, folate is also needed to cook up key neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, the chemicals that literally control our mood and focus. So a problem with folate isn't just a small issue, it's a major disruption right at the core of how we function. So you're probably thinking, if folate is so important, what could possibly get in the way? Well, it turns out that for a massive number of us, something does get in the way, every single day, inside our own cells. And that brings us to the next big clue in our investigation, a gene with a very strange name, MTHFR. The best way to think about it is like a critical machine in a factory. A machine that for a lot of people comes with a bit of a glitch right from the start. The MTHFR gene is basically the blueprint for making an enzyme. The full name is methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Yeah, it's a mouthful, right? Let's just stick with MTHFR. This enzyme has one single incredibly vital job. It takes the folate we get from food or the synthetic kind called folic acid in supplements, and it converts it into the final, usable, active form called L-methylfolate. Without that conversion step, most of the folate we eat is basically useless to our bodies. This visual really explains it perfectly. Just imagine this folate conversion factory running inside your cells. The raw material, folic acid, comes in on the conveyor belt. The big machine in the middle, that's your MTHFR enzyme, is supposed to process it into the finished product your body needs, L-methylfolate. But if you have a common genetic mutation, that machine has a glitch. It's not totally broken, but it's working really slowly, creating this huge traffic jam. The raw material starts piling up, and the factory just can't churn out enough of the finished product to keep up with what your body needs for a healthy brain and a balanced immune system. And here is the part that is just mind-boggling. This isn't some super rare genetic condition that affects a handful of people. Get this, researchers estimate that around half, that's 50% of the entire population has at least one inherited mutation in this gene. That means for about 1 out of every 2 people listening right now, that little cellular factory we just talked about is probably running slower than it should be. This is a massive mainstream issue. So what does this broken machine actually do to you in the real world? Well, the consequences can be huge. First, you just can't make enough active folate. This slowdown causes a traffic jam of other chemicals, including something called homocysteine, which, when it gets too high, becomes a major red flag for cardiovascular problems. It also messes with that crucial gene switching process, methylation, which can affect everything from brain development to the immune dysregulation we see in autoimmune conditions. And finally, you get a disruption in the production line for those feel-good neurotransmitters, which can impact your mood, your focus, your everything. It's amazing how this one little glitch can have such far-reaching effects. Okay, so if the main machine in our factory has a glitch, is there another way? Is there a workaround? Well, this leads us to the first potential solution our investigation has uncovered, a specific type of folate called folinic acid. The science is suggesting that this could be a really clever way to bypass that faulty MTHFR enzyme and get the production line moving again. And there's some seriously compelling evidence to back this up. Just take a look at this quote. It's from a major study in the highly respected journal Molecular Psychiatry. And this wasn't just any study. It was the gold standard, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled. And the results were stunning. They found that folinic acid significantly improved verbal communication in children with autism. This was a massive finding, a huge piece of the puzzle, suggesting that by targeting this specific folate pathway, you could see real, life-changing improvements. And that big study wasn't a one-off. When you start looking at the other research, a really clear pattern starts to show up. Another study from 2021 found it helped with things like irritability and hyperactivity. Then you have a meta-analysis, which is where they pool the data from multiple studies together, and it found a statistically significant reduction in overall ASD symptoms. Now, it's true, some of these studies are small, but the signal, the trend, is pointing in the same positive direction again and again. This all sounds fantastic, right? But it brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important question you have to ask about any new therapy, especially if you're thinking about it for a child. So we have to ask, is folinic acid supplement for MTHFR gene mutation, Hashimoto's, and autism safe? And here, the news is incredibly good. The answer we get from the available research is a very reassuring one. Across trial after trial, even when they used high doses, folinic acid was found to be extremely well tolerated. And the most critical part is this. There were no significant side effects reported in the groups that got the folinic acid compared to the groups that got a simple placebo. That strong safety record is a really big deal and a huge reason why researchers are so excited about this. So let's just summarize what the evidence is telling us. We can say with confidence that for the right person, vitamin B9, folinic acid, can improve health and well-being. And it goes beyond that. The data shows vitamin B9, folinic acid, significantly improves health and function. This all means that vitamin B9, folinic acid, supports improvement in MTHFR gene mutation, Hashimoto's, and autism. And as we saw in those clinical trials, vitamin B9, folinic acid improves speech and behavior in autism. You're listening to OOTOTO TV with research by author Paul Bulow. Folinic acid is an amazing workaround, a clever bypass. But what if you could skip the factory entirely and just get the finished product delivered right to your door? Well, that brings us to our second potential solution, a form called L-methylfolate. If folinic acid is the bypass, you can think of methylfolate as the finished product. It is the most direct, most powerful option out there. Let's go back to our factory one last time. L-methylfolate is the finished product. It's the exact active form of folate that your cells are crying out for. When you supplement with it, you are completely bypassing that slow, glitchy MTHFR machine. No conversion needed. Your body can just grab it and use it right away. For someone with a significant MTHFR mutation, this can be an absolute game changer. So how do you know which one is right? Well, let's break it down. Folinic acid gets you past that main MTHFR traffic jam, but your body still has to do a couple more conversion steps. Its biggest advantage is that it's the one that has been so well studied in the autism research. L-methylfolate, on the other hand, is like the high-speed express train. It bypasses everything. It's immediately usable, which means it has the highest bioavailability and is, in theory, the most efficient choice for anyone who knows they have an MTHFR mutation. Really, the best option depends on your specific biology. Now, we've seen a lot of really promising, exciting information, but any good investigator knows you have to stay skeptical. It's time to take a step back and really evaluate the strength of this evidence, looking at both the incredible promise and the necessary precautions. It's so easy to see these positive results and get really excited, but we have to pump the brakes and ask the hard question. Hi, this is Ben, by the way. I have to jump in here and ask, how strong is this evidence really? Are these definitive slam dunk conclusions, or are we just looking at the very beginning of the story? That's a fantastic point, Ben, and an absolutely necessary one. The researchers themselves are the very first to highlight these limitations. A lot of these amazing studies used small groups of people. So the scientific world agrees these findings are preliminary. We absolutely need bigger, more robust studies to be able to confirm everything we're seeing. Science is always a process of building on what came before, and we're just seeing the really exciting first steps here.
Which, of course, brings us all the way back to the main question of this entire investigation. After looking at how it works, the potential solutions, and the real-world limitations of the science, we have to circle back and ask, so, is vitamin B9, folate, supplement for MTHFR gene mutation, Hashimoto's, and autism beneficial?
And the most important thing to understand is that the answer isn't a simple yes or no for every single person. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that it's highly promising and can be hugely beneficial. But the key word here is targeted. The biggest benefits are seen in people who have specific, measurable biomarkers. That means people who know they have an MTHFR mutation, or people who have something called folate receptor autoantibodies, which are basically antibodies that block folate from even getting into the brain. For those people, supplementing isn't just a random guess. It's a precise strategy designed to fix a known problem. Okay, so far we've been deep in the science. For this last section, let's bring it back to the real world. How do you turn all this information into action? This is your personal folate roadmap. A few simple, practical steps to help you navigate this with your own doctor. So what can you actually do? Step 1 is just awareness. Understanding your own genetic landscape, like a potential MTHFR mutation, is powerful information. Step 2, know that the form of B9 you take really matters. The standard folic acid in most multivitamins is not the best choice for a lot of people, so have folic acid and L-methylfolate on your radar. 3, think about the whole picture. Folate needs a team to work with, especially vitamins B12 and B6. And number 4, and this is by far the most important, don't try to figure this out on your own. Always work with a doctor or a qualified professional. They can help you decide if testing is right for you and guide you to the exact form and dose that fits your unique body. And all of this really leads to this incredibly empowering idea, which is at the very heart of personalized medicine today. This quote from Dr. Isabella Wentz says it all perfectly. Genes are not our destiny. Knowing our genes is helpful as it can provide us with a roadmap. Having an MTHFR mutation isn't a life sentence. It's just information. It's a map that shows you where your body might need a little extra support, and that knowledge gives you the power to do something about it. And so we'll leave you with this one final question to think about. Everything we've talked about today, using your personal genetic and biological data to make smarter health choices, is a perfect example of personalized nutrition. We're moving away from generic, one-size-fits-all advice and towards a future of medicine that is tailored specifically to you. So the question is, as we continue to unlock the secrets of our own biology, is this personalized approach the future of medicine?